This is observed reality. Nothing here is meant to convince you, only to help you notice what is already present. Daily life arrives without ceremony. It appears as routine, as repetition, as movement through familiar spaces. Most of it is unexamined, not ignored, simply unmarked. Perception moves ahead of language, before explanation forms, before meaning is assigned. Experiences register first as sensation, weight, tempo, tone. Loss is felt before it is named. Connection is sensed before it is understood. Change is present before it is acknowledged. This arrival does not announce importance. It does not separate the significant from the mundane. Everything enters on equal footing. Only later does hierarchy appear. In this early stage, reality is unfiltered. It has not yet been sorted into lessons or obstacles. It has not been framed as progress or failure. It is simply what is happening, as it happens. This condition exists continuously, even when unnoticed. Arrival does not depend on awareness. Awareness only determines what remains visible. Distortion in daily life refers to the gap between events and interpretation. It is not deception. It is not error. It is the natural reshaping of experience through perception. Distortion occurs when meaning is compressed, when experiences are processed too quickly, or not at all. Time plays a role, so does attention. Some experiences are absorbed slowly. They settle. They integrate. Others pass through unfinished. They remain unresolved. They influence later moments indirectly. Distortion is not inherently limiting. It can clarify. It can obscure. It redirects focus, sometimes toward stability, sometimes away from it. The same event can produce different outcomes depending on how it is processed. Not because the event changes, because perception does. This phenomenon does not signal weakness or strength. It reflects conditions. When perception is crowded, distortion increases. When perception has space, distortion reveals itself more clearly. It is not an external force. It is a structural feature of how experience becomes internal reference. Distortion shapes memory, expectation, anticipation. Over time, it contributes to what feels reasonable, what feels possible, what feels out of reach, not through intention, through accumulation. Distortion appears in ordinary reactions. A comment feels heavier than its content. A silence feels conclusive when it is not. A setback feels permanent when it is temporary. These impressions often arise automatically, without deliberation. Past experiences color present ones, not precisely, selectively. Wisdom is sometimes internalized as caution, sometimes as rigidity. Loss can be registered as absence or as background noise. Connection can feel effortless or exhausting, depending on prior reference points. Distortion also appears in harmony with others. Misalignment is sensed before it is articulated. Compatibility is assumed before it is tested. Noticing patterns takes time, often longer than expected. Certain situations repeat with slight variation. Certain outcomes feel familiar without clear cause. This familiarity is not coincidence. It is residue. Daily life does not pause for integration. Tasks continue. Conversations continue. Expectations continue. Processing is often deferred, not consciously, by default. Distortion fills that gap. It organizes unfinished material into usable assumptions. Efficient, imprecise. Recognition occurs later, sometimes quietly, sometimes abruptly, usually without resolution. Distortion is amplified by a broader mechanism. This mechanism prioritizes speed over integration, output over digestion. It operates through constant stimulation, continuous exposure, minimal recovery. Information arrives faster than it can be processed. Context is reduced. Continuity is broken. This system does not evaluate meaning. It multiplies input. Under these conditions, perception adapts. It shortcuts. It generalizes. Subtle differences flatten. Nuanced signals blend. Emotional charge becomes a sorting tool, not accuracy. The interference does not distort reality directly. It distorts the conditions under which reality is interpreted. When attention is fragmented, perception relies on prior templates. These templates are rarely updated. The system rewards immediacy. It discourages pause. Reflection becomes inefficient. Silence becomes unused capacity. This is not imposed intentionally. It emerges from scale. The result is a mild but persistent misalignment between what is happening and how it is registered. Distortion increases without dramatic effect. It feels normal. Only later does its influence become noticeable. When patterns repeat, when outcomes feel disproportionate, the interference remains mostly invisible because it resembles daily life. Reorientation does not remove distortion. It changes how distortion is held. When perception is given space, unfinished material surfaces naturally, without effort. Assumptions soften. Reactions slow. This does not resolve contradiction. It reveals it. Clarity appears incrementally, often without relief. Some interpretations loosen, others remain. Reorientation does not promise alignment. It restores perspective. What once felt definitive becomes provisional. What once felt obstructive becomes informative. Distortion is no longer hidden. It becomes observable. This observation does not assign blame. It does not demand correction. It allows patterns to be seen as patterns, not as personal verdicts. Daily life continues unchanged. Responsibilities remain. Uncertainty remains. What shifts is orientation. Less entangled, less compressed. Reorientation does not produce resolution. It produces accuracy over time. Reality is still filtered, but the filter becomes visible. That visibility alters how much influence distortion holds. Not immediately, gradually. Nothing here concludes. Nothing is finalized. Observation continues alongside experience, as it always has. Observation doesn't demand belief, only attention. Interaction remains optional. Subscription, comments, and sharing register engagement. They do not alter the observation itself. This has been observed reality. Nothing here required agreement, only recognition. Interaction remains optional. Subscription, comments, and sharing register engagement. They do not alter the observation itself. This has been observed reality. Nothing here required agreement, only recognition.